A couple of years back, a local powerhouse named Victor Zhao, offered me $2 million to buy my wife. The rage that surged through me was immediate, volcanic. I refused, unequivocally. And in doing so, I learned just how treacherous powerful men in this society could be. I remember the day it all started. My childhood friend, eager to help me network, had arranged an introduction. Victor Zhao was a big name in our city, the kind of connection that could make or break. A career in construction, my line of work. I was thrilled, hopeful. I gathered a few friends, fellow contractors, and booked a private room at an upscale restaurant, laying out a fine banquet. Everyone complimented Sophia, my new wife. Her beauty was striking, yes, but it was her quiet grace that truly captivated. They clapped me on the back, telling me how lucky I was, their voices echoing the sentiment I felt deep in my own chest. I asked Sophia to offer a toast to Mr. Zhao, a customary gesture of respect. His eyes, however, didn't just glance at her. They fixed on her, intense and unwavering. Fueled by alcohol, his gaze sharpened, and he slurred, demanding they drink jiao, the intimate cross-cup toast usually reserved for weddings. We contractors are often rough around the edges. The drinks flowed freely, laughter grew boisterous, and soon, everyone was caught up in the moment. Eager to curry favor with Zhao, they started chanting, egging them on. A bit of spousal diplomacy, someone yelled. One cup, one contract. For my sake, for the future I was trying to build, Sophia, her smile strained but polite, complied. She raised her glass, her arm crossing with his. I watched, forcing a smile onto my face, but a bitter acid churned in my stomach. A wave of regret washed over me. Why had I brought her here? Why expose her to this? After the meal, as people were starting to leave, Victor Zhao pulled me aside, his expression unreadable. He opened a sleek briefcase, revealing thick stacks of cash. One stack, then another, and another, until the polished table was carpeted in crisp banknotes. It had to be close to $1 million. I stared dumbfounded. Mr. Zhao, I stammered, what? What is this? Divorce your wife, he said, his voice low and steady. This $1 million is yours. And that Riverside project you want. Consider it done. My heart hammered against my ribs. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Why? Why would you ask me to divorce her? It felt surreal, utterly absurd. I was completely bewildered. Victor Zhao leaned back, crossing his legs, looking down his nose at me. A smug, proprietary air surrounded him. She looks just like my first love, he stated, a flicker of something. Nostalgia? Obsession? In his eyes. I always regretted not ending up with her. He waved a dismissive hand towards the money. Let her go, David. Do this, and I guarantee you'll live comfortably for the rest of your life. He spoke as if tossing scraps to a beggar. Something inside me snapped. Fire surged through my veins. I slammed my hand on the table, the cash stacks jumping. She looks like your past mistake. So you think you can just buy her? Make me step aside. My voice trembled with fury. If it weren't for the chilling awareness of his influence, his connections, his sheer power in this city, I would have driven my fist into his smirking face right then and there. Seeing my refusal, Victor grabbed my arm, his grip surprisingly strong. Name your price, then. More money. I violently shook off his hand and turned to leave, disgust coiling in my gut. One night, he called after me, his voice laced with desperation and arrogance. Just let me have her for one night. I'll give you $2 million. My vision went red. Blinded by rage, I grabbed the nearest heavy wooden stool and swung it towards his head. Chaos erupted. My friends rushed forward, tackling me, pinning my arms. What happened? What's wrong? Someone shouted, pulling Zhao back. The man, infuriatingly, composed himself instantly, smoothing his suit. He pointed a shaking finger at me, his face a mask of outrage. He's lost his mind. His wife. She was coming on to me. He spat the words out. When she toasted me, she was giving me looks, batting her eyes. She even brushed her fingers against my hand. A fresh wave of fury crashed over me. It took 3 or 4 younger guys to hold me back. Sophia, beside me, was ashen-faced, stunned into silence except for choked whispers of no. I didn't. But my so-called friends, the men I'd shared drinks and ambitions with moments before, weren't looking at her with belief. There. Eyes shifted, calculating. Come on, David, one muttered. Mr. Zhao has everything. Why would he lie? She probably saw his money. Another chimed in. Yeah, some women are just gold diggers, always looking for a shortcut. Someone even cursed Sophia, calling her shameless. My best friend, the one who'd set up the meeting, just stood there, paralyzed by confusion and fear, unsure who to believe. Seeing the wall of disbelief, the accusation in every eye, Sophia broke down, sobbing uncontrollably. She looked so utterly broken, so desperate, that for a terrifying moment, I thought she might try to throw herself from the restaurant balcony to prove her innocence. I wrapped my arm around her, shielding her. He's lying, I yelled at the crowd. He offered me $1 million to divorce her. He wants her because she looks like someone else. Their expressions remained skeptical. $1 million? David, be serious. Who would turn that down? One scoffed. Another voice, laced with crude practicality, piped up, women are like clothes, man. What's the big deal if Mr. Zhao wants to wear her for a bit? Don't be stupid. You're in construction. Piss off Victor Zhao, and you're finished in this city. Surrounded by his sycophants, Victor Zhao puffed up, his arrogance returning full force. I couldn't stand it anymore. I pulled Sophia close and pushed my way out of the room, leaving the poisonous atmosphere behind. As we walked away, Zhao's enraged voice echoed down the corridor. You'll regret this, David. You'll regret the day you were born. Sophia wept the entire way home, her eyes swollen and red. That night, the stress manifested physically. She developed a high fever and had to be admitted to the hospital. I sat by her bedside, watching her sleep fitfully, my heart aching. I knew her. She was decent, pure-hearted. To be slandered like this, accused of being promiscuous by men she considered my friends. The injustice was crushing her spirit. My best friend tracked me down at the hospital, his face etched with worry. David, you need to be careful, he warned, his voice low. Victor Zhao isn't just some businessman. He's a major player. Hard connections, deep pockets. Controls assets worth hundreds of millions, easily. Hundreds of people depend on him for their livelihood. Nobody dares to cross him. I scoffed, though a cold knot tightened in my stomach. So what? He's rich? He has thugs? Does that mean I should just hand over my wife? Send her to his bed? The thought was repulsive. I've got nothing left to lose now. If he dares to touch Sophia again, I'll take him down with me. The barefoot man doesn't fear the one wearing shoes. Victor Zhao's retaliation was swift and brutal. Project managers who had practically promised me contracts suddenly called, one after another. Their voices were cool, distant, full of bureaucratic excuses. Regrettably, David, your company profile doesn't meet our revised requirements. Unexpected changes in project scope mean we're going in a different direction. I knew exactly what was happening. Zhao had made calls. He was cutting off my lifeline. Anger burned, but honestly, I'd half expected it. My plan was to lie low, maybe take a forced break for a few months. Surely, Zhao's obsession would fade. He'd forget about me. But I had grossly underestimated the depth of his malice. I was part of a large WeChat group for local construction professionals. One morning, I opened the app to a flood of vitriol directed at me. Vile insults, crude voice messages. Many of the business owners who usually fawned over Zhao were now attacking me viciously. How dare you offend Mr. Zhao? You're finished in this city, pal. Find a new career. I saw his wife. Nothing special. Probably desperate, trying to seduce Mr. Zhao. Maybe David put her up to it. Trying to frame Mr. Zhao. My hand holding the phone trembled. That bastard Zhao. Twisting the truth. Painting himself as the victim. Before I could even process it, a notification popped up. Victor Zhao himself was speaking in the group. And then another. Victor Zhao is now the group owner. His message was chillingly direct. Anyone who does business with David from now on is showing disrespect to me. Victor Zhao. Don't blame me for the consequences. And then, with a final, dismissive click, he kicked me out of the group. Blood pounded in my temples. I felt utterly powerless, choked with rage. Fine. So be it. I wouldn't work in construction anymore. I had hands. I had skills. I could do something else. Zhao couldn't control the entire world, could he? He couldn't starve me out. I refused to believe it. In the hospital, Sophia looked at me, her eyes still tear-filled, pools of quiet suffering. I forced a reassuring smile, smoothed her hair back. Rest, I whispered. Only when she finally drifted into an exhausted sleep did I leave her side. I had just finished a project and needed to collect the final payment, a significant sum. With that money, I could start fresh, leave this toxic environment. But when I went to the client's office, the project manager stalled. He claimed my work was substandard, full of defects. He demanded a complete rework, refusing to release the funds. Ice flooded my veins. My blood roared in my ears. I had sunk everything I had into this project, my savings, borrowed capital. If I didn't get paid, I'd be bankrupt. How would I support Sophia? My parents? What about the dozens of workers who relied on me for their wages? The project manager avoided my eyes. Look, David, he said hesitantly. Maybe just go apologize to Mr. Zhao? Smooth things over? I'm sure this payment issue could be resolved quickly then. So it was him. Zhao was behind this too. A buzzing filled my head. Fury, pure and hot, consumed me. I spotted a heavy iron shovel leaning against a nearby wall. Without thinking, I grabbed it, ready to storm out and find Zhao, ready to settle this with violence. Several of my loyal workers quickly intervened, grabbing my arms, pleading with me. Boss, don't. He's too powerful. You can't win like this. He has too many men. Going alone is suicide. You won't even get close to him. The fight drained out of me, replaced by a crushing sense of impotence. I let the shovel clatter to the ground. My phone rang. It was my mother. Her voice was choked with panic. David, your father. He was hit by a car. They rushed him to the hospital. He's in surgery right now. Fear seized me. I sprinted towards the main city hospital. My mother was a wreck, sobbing uncontrollably, clinging to my arm. David, she cried, her eyes wide with terror. Did you make someone angry recently? Did you offend someone powerful? My heart plummeted. Why do you ask, Mom? The car, it aimed right for him, she gasped. It hit him and then sped away. It happened on that little side street near the market, the one with no security cameras. I didn't know how to answer her. A bitter taste filled my mouth. I knew. Instantly, I knew. This was Zhao's work too. Another message. Another turn of the screw. He wanted me to understand the consequences of defying him. He wanted me broken, desperate enough to hand over Sophia. He wanted to crush me utterly. Thankfully, my father had always been robust. The accident broke his leg severely, but it could have been much worse. The doctor said he'd likely walk with a limp for the rest of his life. Looking at my father, pale and unconscious in his hospital bed, and thinking of Sophia in another ward just floors away, the weight of the word power settled on me like a physical burden. It was a suffocating mountain, pressing the air from my lungs. A profound sense of helplessness washed over me. I didn't go crawling to Victor Zhao. My pride wouldn't let me. Instead, I called in every favor I had, pulled every string I could reach. After days of stressful negotiation, pouring out my remaining resources, I finally persuaded the project manager to release my funds. The day the payment was due, I went to the office, my heart cautiously optimistic. I waited for the manager, and waited, but it wasn't the manager who finally appeared. It was Victor Zhao, flanked by two burly men. He sauntered in, a mocking smile playing on his lips. Heard you've been having a rough time, David, he drawled, settling into the plush sofa opposite me. Wife in the hospital. Father in the hospital, can't get paid? His eyes glinted with contemptuous amusement. It was clear he felt he'd effortlessly brought me to my knees with just a few casual maneuvers. I said nothing, just stared at him, my jaw clenched. One of his men poured him tea, lit his cigarette. He took a long drag, exhaling smoke slowly. You know, he continued, his voice smooth as silk. My previous offer? It still stands. Get out. The words ripped from my throat, raw with fury. He chuckled, a low, humorless sound. All right, David. Have it your way. We'll play. But you'll learn soon enough. You and I aren't even in the same league. Crushing you. He paused, leaning forward slightly. Will be as easy as crushing an ant. He stubbed out his cigarette, threw back his head, and laughed, a loud, booming sound that filled the room. Then he rose and walked out, dismissing me completely, as if I were nothing more than a bothersome insect. Sophia finally recovered enough to be discharged. She was frighteningly thin, looking as if a strong gust of wind could carry her away. Though still weak, she insisted on visiting my father immediately. She was a good woman, kind-hearted and uncomplicated. When she married me, she committed completely. The driver who hit my father was never found. I knew who was responsible, but I didn't breathe a word to my family. I was the man of the house. I would carry this burden alone. Telling them would only cause more fear and worry. After visiting Dad, we headed home. Sophia mentioned wanting some fruit. I pulled over near a street-side stall and told her I'd wait while she picked some out. As she approached the stall, a group of rough-looking men, dyed hair, flashy tattoos, swaggering postures, lounged nearby. They immediately zeroed in on her, making lewd comments, their voices oily with suggestion. I was out of the car in a second, placing myself protectively in front of Sophia. The men turned their attention to me, spewing filthy insults, rolling up their sleeves menacingly. One of them, a lanky guy with garish yellow hair, was particularly foul-mouthed, his words designed to provoke. Something snapped. All the pent-up rage, frustration, and fear from the past weeks surged through me. I lunged forward and punched the yellow-haired punk square in the jaw. He crumpled instantly, hitting the pavement hard and lying still. A sudden, chilling unease prickled my skin. This felt wrong. Too easy. Sirens wailed in the distance, approaching fast. Police cars screeched to a halt. Despite his aggressive appearance, Blondie was surprisingly fragile. My single punch had given him a mild concussion. Assault. I was arrested and sentenced to 15 days in detention. The first few days were agony. I worried constantly about Sophia, and my hatred for Zhao festered like a poison. I wanted to smash through the iron bars, hunt him down, and end this, one way or another. The police officers processing me were sympathetic. They recognized the thugs as known troublemakers, petty criminals who specialized in provocation. They just curse at you, hoping you'll lash out. One officer explained tiredly. That way, you take the fall, they walk away clean. Next time, try to keep your cool, kid. He sighed. The law. It doesn't care about the provocation. It only sees the punch. I knew then, with cold certainty, that this too was Zhao's orchestration. Another trap, expertly laid. I had fallen for it. I wouldn't be so reckless again. The war with Victor Zhao had begun, and it would only end when one of us surrendered. He was a mountain looming over me, casting a long, oppressive shadow. Sophia came to visit. It had only been 10 days, but she looked even thinner, worn down by stress. The moment she saw me through the reinforced glass partition, tears welled up. Her eyes were already puffy and red. I forced a smile. Hey, if you keep crying like that, you won't be beautiful anymore, I teased gently. She just shook her head, fresh tears spilling. Right now, she choked out. I wish I wasn't beautiful at all. Then maybe none of this would have happened. Maybe I wouldn't be causing you so much trouble. I looked at her, my heart aching. I reached out, wanting to touch her face, to comfort her, but my fingers met only the cold, unyielding glass. Sophia leaned forward, pressing her cheek against her side of the barrier, her large, expressive eyes fixed on mine, trying to offer warmth across the divide. Words failed us, dissolving into shared tears. She needed me. She needed my protection. Don't worry, I said, my voice softer now, trying to project confidence I didn't feel. Go stay with your parents for a while. I'll handle everything here. She knew me too well. Alarm flared in her eyes. David, no. Don't provoke him anymore. Please. Let's just leave. We can move to another city, start over somewhere else. Her voice trembled. She didn't want me risking myself further for her honor. Running away seemed the only sensible option. Zhao's reach was long, but surely it wouldn't extend across provincial lines. I didn't answer immediately, because a plan was already forming in the cold clarity of the detention cell. I had realized it then. Brute force, blind rage, they wouldn't solve anything. They would only land me back here, or worse. Imprisoned, my claws would be clipped. I couldn't protect anyone. Whatever I did next had to be strategic, calculated, and above all, it had to keep me free. He tried to steal my wife. He drove me to the brink of bankruptcy. He crippled my father. He had me thrown in jail. Revenge wasn't just a desire anymore. It was a necessity. And I would be methodical. I would dismantle his life, piece by piece. I would use the most devastating methods I could devise to bring him crashing down, strip him of everything. That mountain he represented, I would watch it crumble before my very eyes. You're free to go. The guard's voice broke through my thoughts. As I walked towards the exit, I glanced back at a man who had just been brought into the holding area. He was burly, with a thick beard and a scowl etched onto his face, looking fierce and intimidating even in handcuffs. He caught my eye and gave a slight, almost imperceptible nod, a silent acknowledgement. Stay out. His expression seemed to say, don't come back here. I nodded back. Outside, the sky seemed vast and liberating, but I didn't pause to appreciate it. My plan was already in motion. In life, you often find a few people you can truly count on, anchors in the storm. Mr. Harrison was one of mine. He was my mentor, the man who brought me into the construction business years ago. He knew about the conflict with Zhao and had offered several times to mediate, to try and smooth things over. But knowing Zhao's vindictive nature, I'd always declined, afraid of dragging Mr. Harrison into the mess. But things had escalated beyond simple grudges. My father's broken leg, my own detention, Zhao had crossed lines that couldn't be uncrossed. I was cornered, left with no choice but to ask for my mentor's help. There's talk. I began, leaning closer in the quiet tea house where we met, about that massive provincial resettlement housing project. Victor Zhao is circling it like a shark smelling blood. He's already boasting he's got it in the bag. Mr. Harrison frowned. Then understanding dawned in his eyes. Everyone in the industry knew Zhao's modus operandi. Win contracts by submitting impossibly low bids, then make up the profit by cutting corners. Using substandard materials and exploiting loopholes. He'd had several near disasters on previous projects, safety incidents hushed up through his network of connections and strategically placed bribes. You're planning to gather evidence? Mr. Harrison asked quietly. Hit him where it hurts? Exactly. A cold smile touched my lips. He'll underbid. He'll cut corners. It's inevitable. We just need proof. But even if he wins the bid, even if we have solid evidence, Mr. Harrison mused, still cautious, who will be the one to bring him down? We're just small players, David. Knowing the truth isn't enough against someone like Zhao. I can't do it alone, I admitted. But I know someone who can. I have a plan. I poured him another cup of tea, a gesture of respect and plea. Mr. Harrison studied me intently for a long moment, then raised his cup. All right, David, he said, his voice firm. I'll help. I'll arrange for trusted people to get onto his site once construction starts. We'll document everything. He took a sip. It's time someone took Zhao down. He cast too long a shadow over this city. Destroying Victor Zhao wouldn't just be personal vengeance. It would open up opportunities for countless others he'd bullied and undercut for years. When he fell, the entire industry would breathe easier. Self-interest, mixed with a sense of justice and old loyalty, solidified my mentor's resolve. In the world of adults, sometimes motives needed to be complex. The bidding process for the provincial resettlement housing project unfolded exactly as expected. Victor Zhao pulled out all the stops, leveraging every connection, calling in every favor. He needed this project, this massive symbol of success. In the packed bidding hall, I sat in a shadowed corner, an anonymous observer. I watched as Zhao, beaming with confidence, submitted a bid so low it drew gasps from his competitors. It was his signature move, reckless and predatory. Applause erupted when his company was announced as the winner. Victor Zhao threw back his head and laughed, a triumphant roar, envisioning mountains of gold flowing his way. Sycophants swarmed him, offering congratulations, showering him with flattery. He was ecstatic, basking in the adoration, already planning lavish celebration banquets. Later, I heard he'd sent out huge red envelopes, thousands upon thousands. In that same WeChat group he'd kicked me out of, the messages poured in. Boss Zhao is invincible. Congratulations, Mr. Zhao. He was at the pinnacle of his success, drunk on power and adoration. Only I watched from the sidelines, knowing the truth. The bait, this massive, lucrative project, was too tempting, too irresistible. Even if a part of him suspected a trap, his own greed and arrogance would compel him to walk right into it. I hadn't needed to do anything elaborate. He was digging his own grave. I watched him build his tower higher and higher. I watched him feast with his false friends. Soon, I vowed silently, I would watch it all come crashing down. The day after Zhao's crews broke ground on the resettlement project site, radiating confidence and ambition, I paid a visit to the City Construction Bureau. My contact there was James Lee. We'd been roommates in college, closer than brothers back then. He had recently been transferred from another province, promoted to a significant position within the bureau, head of the inspection department. He'd been in the job less than a month. He was the key. He was the someone who could, that I'd mentioned to Mr. Harrison. Of course, friendship alone wasn't enough to ask someone to risk their career. Zhao was deeply entrenched, with powerful allies. An accusation, if mishandled or refuted, could backfire spectacularly, jeopardizing James's promising future. But this wasn't just about helping a friend. This was a major case. Billions in public funds, the safety of thousands of future residents hanging in the balance. Successfully exposing Zhao's corruption and negligence would be a huge victory, a career-defining accomplishment that could propel James even higher. Sentiment and ambition. I hoped it would be enough. James was overjoyed to see me, immediately suggesting we go out for drinks, catch up properly. I managed a weak smile. James, buddy, I wouldn't be here bothering you if it wasn't life or death. His smile faded. What happened, David? Tell me everything. I laid it all out. Zhao's obsession with Sophia, the threats, the financial ruin, my father's accident, the setup with the thugs, the detention. And finally, Zhao's history of shoddy construction practices and my plan regarding the new housing project. Slam. James slammed his hand on his desk, his face livid. That bastard. He took a deep breath, composing himself. Okay, David. What do you need me to do? Relief washed over me. College bonds ran deep. But I couldn't ask him to bend the rules. Zhao always wins bids low, then cuts corners. To make profit, I explained. Substandard steel, cheap cement, you name it. Mr. Harrison is getting people on the inside to gather concrete evidence from the resettlement site. Once we have irrefutable proof, all I need you to do is your job. Conduct a thorough, by-the-book inspection. Let the evidence speak for itself. Taking down a menace like Zhao isn't just personal for me. It's a public service. James didn't hesitate. Inspection is my mandate, David. If violations are found, they will be handled according to regulations. Period. James came from a well-respected, scholarly family with independent means. I knew Zhao's money held no temptation for him, even if Zhao tried bribery as a last resort. Still, his immediate, unwavering support moved me deeply. The risks were enormous, but the potential rewards, both professional and ethical, were immense. A path to greater heights lay through this battlefield. I raised my teacup. To justice, I said quietly. If this goes wrong, James, I take the fall alone. I won't drag you down with me. As I was leaving his office, James called me back. David, he said thoughtfully, your plan is good, solid. But to truly guarantee Zhao's downfall, to dismantle his defenses completely, you need one more person on your side. I frowned. Who? James smiled faintly, a strategic glint in his eyes, and spoke a name. Eleanor Bai, Victor Zhao's wife. I was stunned. The arrogant, domineering Victor Zhao, a man who acted like he owned the city, was actually a Zhueishu, a man who had married into his wife's family and built his fortune on their influence. Appearances were deceiving. Zhao, now bloated, balding, and greasy, had apparently been quite handsome in his youth. Word was, he'd been ruthlessly calculating even back in university. He'd dumped his first love, the one Sophia supposedly resembled, to pursue Eleanor Bai relentlessly for 3 years, employing every charm and manipulation tactic he could devise. He'd even agreed to the potentially humiliating Zhueishu arrangement, effectively giving up his own family name's prestige for the sake of marrying her. Eleanor, moved by his apparent devotion and mistaking calculation for true love, had chosen him over other suitors, despite him having little else to offer besides looks. Through her family's connections and wealth, Zhao rapidly climbed the ladder, becoming the powerful figure he was today. His wife's name was Eleanor Bai. We met in a quiet corner of an upscale cafe. She wore a simple white dress that nonetheless radiated elegance. Though likely nearing 40, she looked 10 years younger, impeccably maintained, undeniably beautiful. Seeing her, a fresh wave of contempt for Zhao washed over me. A man who owed everything to his wife, living off her family's legacy, yet betraying her? And with such a stunning, graceful woman at home? What kind of man does that? Committing to a woman means cherishing her, protecting her. If you can't even do that, you're not worthy of the title man. I walked over and sat down opposite her. Her perfectly shaped eyebrows drew together slightly in confusion. The cafe was mostly empty. Why was this stranger joining her table? I have something to tell you about your husband, I said softly, keeping my voice low. I showed her everything, the videos, the audio recordings, the photos. Evidence meticulously gathered by Mr. Harrison's contacts during Zhao's sordid escapades. As she watched and listened, her composure crumbled. Shock, disbelief, then incandescent anger warred on her beautiful features. He has everything because of me, because of my family, she whispered, her voice trembling, her hands shaking uncontrollably. How dare he? When she heard the audio clip of Zhao drunkenly boasting to another woman about how his old yellow-faced wife at home couldn't compare to younger flesh, tears finally spilled, tracing paths down her cheeks. Apparently, Zhao maintained a facade of meek obedience at home, the picture of a dutiful husband. He was careful, covering his tracks, sending texts and occasional video calls when he claimed to be working late. Eleanor, perhaps wanting to believe in the man she thought she married, had dismissed rumors and whispers over the years, trusting him. Now, faced with undeniable proof, the reality hit her. Like a physical blow. Her love, her trust, her entire marriage, all built on a foundation of lies. She had been deceived for so long. Watching her raw pain, I felt a pang of sympathy. This wasn't just about my revenge anymore. It's better to see his true face now, I said gently, than to live in deception forever. She slowly regained control, wiping her eyes, her gaze sharp and assessing as she looked at me. I don't know you. Why are you showing me this? She asked, her voice tight. Others must have known, suspected things, but I suppose they were afraid of Victor's retaliation. She held my gaze. Aren't you afraid? I sighed, deciding the truth was the only way. I told her everything. The initial offer, the threats, my father, the setup, my detention. Her eyes widened slightly. Victor could make you disappear with a snap of his fingers, she said, testing me. Risking all this for your wife. Do you truly think it's worth it? Many men in your position would take the money, the easy way out. Get a divorce, find another woman. Her skepticism was understandable. Faced with ruin versus riches, the choice seemed obvious to many. But not to me. I think she's worth it, I replied firmly, meeting her gaze. If you don't think love and loyalty are worth fighting for, then I truly pity you. Something shifted in her eyes. My simple declaration, "She's worth it," seemed to resonate deeply, perhaps highlighting the stark contrast with her own situation. A profound sadness washed over her face, extinguishing the last spark of defiance, leaving her looking drained and defeated. "Come with me," she said abruptly, standing up. I looked at her, confused. "Where?" "Tonight," she said, her voice strangely flat, devoid of emotion. "You get me drunk, completely obliterated. And then I'll help you." Looking at her tear-streaked face, her fragile state, I felt cornered. I had no other choice. I spent the night matching Eleanor drink for drink. Beer, red wine, shots. I lost count. All I knew was that by the end, she was stumbling, barely able to stand, leaning heavily against the wall outside the bar, vomiting repeatedly. Clearly, I couldn't just leave her on the street in the middle of the night. I called for a car service. "Which hotel?" I asked gently. She shook her head, her face pale and clammy. "No hotels," she mumbled. "Don't like them. Take me home." Not thinking much of it, I gave the driver her address, a sprawling, luxurious villa in a gated suburban community. The place dripped wealth. I helped her inside, practically carrying her as she sagged against me, limp and unresponsive. Her subtle, expensive perfume filled the air around us. "Okay, you're home. I should go now," I said, trying to disentangle myself. But she suddenly grabbed my arm, her grip surprisingly strong. She opened her mouth. "Oh," and proceeded to vomit all over my shirt and jacket. I stood there, stunned and utterly speechless. "Oh, I'm so sorry," she slurred, looking genuinely distressed, almost childlike. Go take a shower. Upstairs, first door on the right. I'll have the housekeeper wash and dry your clothes." What choice did I have? I couldn't walk out covered in vomit. Reluctantly, I agreed. But nothing could have prepared me for what happened next. After showering, wrapped in a plush, new bathrobe they'd left out for me, I walked back down to the grand living room, my hair still damp. Sitting on the opulent sofa, his face like thunder, was Victor Zhao. He saw me, damp hair, bathrobe, and leaped to his feet as if electrocuted. He looked absolutely insane. His eyes blazed with fury, fixed on me, his entire body trembling with rage. "What the hell are you doing in my house?" he roared. "Eleanor, you treacherous bitch. You dare bring another man here. You dare cheat on me." He started grabbing objets d'art from nearby tables, hurling them against the walls, screaming incoherently. Just then, Eleanor appeared at the top of the grand staircase. Her hair was now elegantly swept up, her posture regal, her expression icily composed. The tearful, vulnerable woman from the bar was gone, replaced by a formidable presence, radiating cold, aristocratic power. She looked every inch the powerful matriarch, the real source of the family's influence. The transformation was startling. When a woman truly decides to fight back, men often don't stand a chance. The moment Eleanor appeared, Victor Zhao's explosive rage evaporated. He visibly shrank, his shoulders slumping, unable to meet her glacial gaze. The roaring tiger instantly became a chastened cat. "A younger man like him," Eleanor said, her voice dripping with contempt as she descended the stairs. "Isn't he more appealing than a washed-up, middle-aged bore like you?" She walked directly to me and linked her arm through mine, leaning against me slightly, a picture of intimate affection. Victor's eyes practically bulged with fury and wounded pride, but he remained silent, bougon flambeau, daring not to retort. He knew where his power truly came from. Status, wealth, influence, it all flowed from Eleanor and her family. Eleanor let out a small, dismissive scoff. She turned to me, her voice suddenly soft, almost tender. "You should go now, David. I'm tired tonight." She paused, then added, a mischievous glint in her eyes. "Keep your phone on, okay?" Before I could react, still reeling from the bizarre turn of events, she leaned in and planted a light, lingering kiss on my cheek. Then, she turned and glided away, leaving me standing there in the borrowed bathrobe, facing her seething husband. She was returning the pain he had inflicted, using his own tactics against him. I could see the raw hurt beneath her performance, but this act of defiance, this reclaiming of power, seemed to be cauterizing the wound, at least for now. Victor Zhao glared at me, his expression a mixture of murderous rage and utter humiliation. He looked like he wanted to tear me limb from limb, but he didn't dare. Eleanor's implicit protection was like an invisible shield around me. He wouldn't risk challenging her authority directly. "So," he finally hissed, his voice choked, sounding like air escaping a punctured bellows. "I wanted your wife, so you decide to screw mine first? Is that it?" His face was mottled red and white, veins pulsing at his temples. I almost told him the truth, that nothing happened, that it was all a performance by Eleanor. But seeing him like this, furious, impotent, consumed by jealousy and despair, a savage satisfaction surged through me. You know the old saying, Victor, I replied slowly, deliberately adjusting the belt of the bathrobe. He who covets another's wife risks his own being coveted. He exploded in a torrent of curses, taking a step towards me as if to attack. But then he stopped, glancing at my younger, fitter frame. This middle-aged man, softened by years of easy living, clearly had no stomach for a real physical confrontation. You just wait, he shrieked, tears of rage and frustration actually welling in his eyes. You just wait. He turned and fled the villa, sobbing like a broken child. What goes around comes around. Payback, served cold. Back in my own modest apartment, I could almost still feel the phantom touch of Eleanor's lips, smell her perfume lingering on the bathrobe I'd discarded. I knew she had been acting, playing a role born of deep pain and a desire for retribution, even if she'd seemed genuinely drunk earlier. But the image of Sophia, waiting patiently and trustingly for me at her parents' place, spurred me to scrub my face raw with soap and water, needing to wash away any trace of the night's strange intimacy. I hesitated, wondering if I should call Eleanor. Technically, I hadn't fulfilled my side of the bizarre bargain, getting her completely drunk. I suspected her tolerance was far higher than she let on. Just then, my phone buzzed. A message from Eleanor. I'm sorry about tonight. Using you as a tool for my revenge wasn't fair. It was followed by a crying emoji. She was still hurting. Deeply. A good woman betrayed so cruelly by the man she had elevated, heartbroken, didn't even begin to cover it. It's okay, I typed back. Another message quickly followed. He betrayed me. He hurt me profoundly. I'm going to divorce him. Then, do what you need to do, David. She was sharp, incredibly perceptive. I hadn't explicitly stated my full plan, but she understood. She was giving me her blessing, perhaps even her implicit support. Staring at the screen, a fierce joy surged through me. The final piece of the puzzle, the linchpin of my revenge, had just clicked into place. Victor Zhao, having suffered a humiliating blow he couldn't openly retaliate against without further angering Eleanor, poured all his energy and resources into the resettlement housing project. It became his obsession, his path to independence, his way to prove he didn't need Eleanor or her family. He started borrowing money frantically, leveraging everything he had, even turning to notorious loan sharks charging exorbitant interest rates. The sheer scale of the project, dozens of 33-story high-rises, required an astronomical amount of capital. Truckloads of money were being poured into the site daily. But Zhao, blinded by greed, didn't care. He transferred the entire contract to one of his own shell companies, intending to pocket nearly all the profit himself, cutting out subcontractors and partners. This blatant self-dealing earned him further resentment within the industry, but he was too focused on the potential windfall to notice or care. He believed this project would solidify his position, make him untouchable. Rumor had it he'd borrowed upwards of $500 million. For a while, construction proceeded smoothly, feeding Zhao's already inflated ego. He became even more arrogant, more dismissive, though still wary of finalizing the divorce. With Eleanor, he moved out of the villa and began openly living with another woman, a final insult that severed any lingering thread of loyalty Eleanor might have felt. But fortunes can turn on a dime. The rise and fall of titans, especially those built on shaky foundations, can happen with breathtaking speed. One unremarkable Tuesday, a high-level inspection team from the provincial government arrived unannounced at the sprawling construction site. Leading the team was James Lee, looking stern and official, every bit the incorruptible bureaucrat. And I was right there, walking beside him. The moment Victor Zhao saw me standing next to the head inspector, the color drained from his face. Recovering quickly, the old fox rushed forward, attempting his usual charm offensive, offering cigarettes, extending invitations for lavish dinners, his smile wide and forced. James Lee ignored him completely, his expression impassive. Following my discreet directions, based on the meticulous evidence gathered by Mr. Harrison's people, James's team began targeted inspections. Zhao's face grew paler with each passing minute. He clearly hadn't anticipated a sudden, rigorous inspection on a project that seemed to be progressing without a hitch. The findings were damning. One violation after another. Critical supporting steel beams specified as 12 millimeters, replaced with cheaper, weaker 10 millimeters bars. The high-grade cement brand mandated in the contract, swapped out entirely for a low-cost, substandard alternative. The evidence was undeniable, meticulously documented. I am James Lee, head of inspection for the City Construction Bureau, James announced formally, his voice ringing with authority. This site is hereby ordered to cease all construction activities immediately, pending further investigation. He fixed Zhao with a steely gaze, cutting corners on a major public housing project, endangering future residents. You seem to have powerful connections, Mr. Zhao, but your audacity is truly remarkable. One sentence, and the entire multi-billion project ground to a halt. Sweat beaded on Zhao's forehead, dripping down his temples. Panic seized him. He had sunk everything into this. Over 500 million in upfront costs and borrowed capital. If the project was shut down permanently, the loan sharks alone would bury him alive. He scurried around like a trapped rat, making frantic calls, his composure utterly shattered. I stood amidst the now silent machinery, watching his meltdown, clenching my fists tightly. Every step, every calculation, every risk I'd taken, it had all led to this moment. His own greed, amplified by my careful maneuvers. Enjoy the dawn of your apocalypse, Victor Zhao. I took a deep breath, the crisp air filling my lungs. A few dry leaves drifted down, landing on my shoulder. I looked up. Autumn had arrived. And suddenly, overwhelmingly, I missed Sophia, safe but far away in another city. As if his luck had completely deserted him, disaster struck again, compounding Zhao's problems exponentially. In a desperate attempt to destroy evidence, he secretly organized a convoy of trucks late one night to sneak onto the sealed site and haul away the substandard building materials. The operation was clumsy, rushed, executed by unprofessional hired hands. In the darkness and confusion, one of the overloaded trucks lost control and slammed directly into a critical concrete support pillar. Due to the shoddy construction, the pillar didn't just crack, it crumbled. The impact triggered a catastrophic chain reaction, causing a partial collapse of the nearly completed building frame. Half the structure imploded, bringing tons of concrete and steel crashing down. 4 or 5 of the workers Zhao had hired for the illicit removal operation were crushed instantly, buried under the debris. The situation escalated dramatically. This was no longer just about regulatory violations and potential rework. This was a major construction accident. This was negligent homicide. When I heard the news, a cold fury settled over me. Innocent lives lost because of his greed. But grief had to wait. Ensuring Zhao faced the full consequences was now the only way to honor those who died. Zhao scrambled, calling everyone he knew, begging for help, pleading for intervention. But now he was radioactive, a pariah. Nobody dared associate with him. It was then, perhaps, that he truly understood. Without Eleanor's backing, his carefully cultivated network of connections, his fair-weather friends, were utterly useless. Still, he didn't give up. Desperate and cornered, he made one last, foolish gamble. He filled a briefcase with cash, reportedly $1 million, and tried to bribe James Lee directly. When he opened the case in James's office, revealing the stacks of money, his face stretched into a pleading, sycophantic grin. James had him thrown out immediately. Zhao stood numbly outside the bureau office, utterly defeated, looking lost and broken. He didn't even notice me approach until I was standing right behind him, attempting to bribe a public official on top of causing a fatal construction accident. I murmured, my voice low. You really are determined to dig your own grave deeper, aren't you, Victor? He flinched, turning slowly, his face ashen. He looked at me, and in his eyes, I saw the dawning, horrified realization. He finally understood the full extent of the web that had ensnared him. He knew who was behind it all. He stumbled away like a broken man, a specter of his former self. He's here. Eleanor's voice came through the video call she'd initiated. She discreetly turned her phone's camera towards the entrance of the villa. I watched as Victor Zhao shuffled in. A month had passed since I'd last seen him, but he looked years older, his shoulders slumped, his movements frail. He saw Eleanor, and his eyelids twitched nervously. All the previous arrogance was gone, replaced by raw desperation. Thump. He fell to his knees on the polished marble floor in front of her. Eleanor, please. I beg you, don't divorce me. He sobbed, tears streaming down his face, mixing with snot. You have to help me. If you don't help me, I'm finished. Completely ruined. He poured out a pathetic stream of excuses and pleas. He claimed he'd been bewitched, that the other women meant nothing, just fleeting distractions. He painted a picture of utter despair, enemies closing in, bankruptcy looming, prison inevitable. He made himself sound pitiful, tragically wronged. He knew I was the architect of his destruction, yet he didn't dare utter a single word against me in front of Eleanor. He could see his own pleading face reflected in the phone screen she held, knew I was watching his abject humiliation unfold in real time. Not long ago, I was the ant, and he was the mountain. Mountains do not grovel before ants. Yet here he was, poo-foo, prostrating, his eyes filled with a desperate, helpless regret I recognized all too well. The despair of the powerless. And now, I was the mountain. Younger, stronger, radiating a quiet confidence that seemed to crush the remaining air from his lungs. I watched the video feed, my face impassive. I remembered that day in the restaurant, his condescending smirk as he offered me money to discard my wife, the sheer arrogance, the absolute certainty of his power. The higher the climb, the harder the fall. It's over, Victor. Eleanor's voice was cold, devoid of any lingering emotion. She slid a document across the floor towards him. Divorce papers. Sweat dripped from Zhao's forehead onto the pristine floor. His whole body trembled uncontrollably. He huddled there, looking small and pathetic, like a cornered rodent. It was him, wasn't it? Zhao finally croaked, his voice raspy. All of this his plan is set up. No, Victor, Eleanor replied, her voice cutting like ice. This was your setup. Your plan. You decided to destroy another man's life for your selfish desires. You chose to trample on a man's deepest loyalties. Her eyes flashed. You never understood, did you? The lengths someone will go to, the courage they can find, to protect the person they love. She turned, her heels clicking decisively on the marble, and walked away without a backward glance. Victor Zhao collapsed fully onto the floor, a broken man. He knew it was over. I ended the video call and immediately dialed Sophia. Hey, I said, my voice warm. It's getting cold there, isn't it? Make sure you wear an extra layer. From the moment I decided on revenge, every step was carefully calculated. But I must admit, Victor Zhao's cooperation was invaluable. His insatiable greed blinded him. The housing project could have made him legitimately wealthy, yet he grasped for more, cutting corners that led to disaster. His arrogance alienated everyone, especially Eleanor. Moving out to live with another woman while still technically married sealed her decision to abandon him. He saw himself as a self-made titan, forgetting that his entire empire was built on the foundation of his wife's love and her family's influence. When he shattered that foundation himself, the entire structure was doomed to collapse. He who stands tall on borrowed stilts is destined for a painful fall. Before the police could even formally arrest him for the construction accident and related charges, the loan sharks got wind of the project's collapse. Their massive loans, now unrecoverable, turned their patience into fury. These weren't legitimate bankers. They were hardened underworld figures who played by brutal rules. Zhao's opulent company headquarters was ransacked, smashed into a ruin of broken glass and splintered furniture. A dozen thugs caught up with Zhao himself, beating him mercilessly, leaving him with broken arms and legs, moaning in a pool of his own blood on the grimy pavement outside. Just weeks before, a single word from him would have brought minions scrambling to please him. Now, he lay twitching on the concrete, head split open, utterly alone. I walked up and stood over him, then crouched down, looking into the pain-filled eyes of the man who had once seemed invincible. Need some help? I asked calmly, pulling out my phone. Yes, yes. He gasped, blood bubbling from his lips. His gaze held a universe of hatred, yet beneath it, a desperate, primal plea for survival. I dialed 120, the emergency number, and requested an ambulance for him. He managed a choked sound, something that might have been thanks. I leaned closer, whispering into his ear, my voice soft but chilling. You need to survive this, Victor. Stay alive. A cruel smile touched my lips. Because my plan for you, it isn't finished yet. His body convulsed in a violent shudder. He stared up at me, his eyes wide with a terror that transcended physical pain, as if gazing into the depths of hell itself. But he couldn't utter a single word. While Victor Zhao recovered in the hospital, heavily guarded but physically mending, I became a frequent visitor. I'd sit by his bedside and cheerfully recount how his downfall was the talk of the town, how the very people who once kissed his boots now spat on his name, using his story as a cautionary tale. I'd bring him printouts of relevant legal statutes, helpfully highlighting the potential sentences for charges like negligent homicide resulting from a major construction accident, bribery of public officials, and the litany of other offenses investigators were undoubtedly uncovering from his past shady dealings. Every time he saw me, he would initially react with frantic rage, screaming and thrashing weakly in his bed. But eventually, he'd retreat, curling up against the wall, covering his ears, whimpering, begging me to stop, to leave him alone. But I kept coming back. After all, who else cared enough to visit him now? 3 months later, Zhao's broken bones had healed, but his freedom was over. He stood trial, a gaunt, broken figure in the defendant's dock. The prosecution laid out the case. Multiple counts including negligence causing a major accident, bribery, involuntary manslaughter, plus over a dozen other past crimes unearthed during the investigation. He was found guilty on all counts. Sentence: 15 years in prison. All personal assets confiscated. Standing there, listening to the verdict, he looked like a withered old man, decades older than his actual age. Bankrupt, disgraced, stripped of everything. Words couldn't capture the totality of his ruin. As the bailiffs led him away, I caught his eye and offered a small, knowing smile. "It's still not over, Victor," I mouthed silently. He heard me. He understood. His legs buckled. He collapsed onto the courtroom floor, refusing to move towards the waiting prison van, wailing and sobbing hysterically. He lost complete control, fouling himself, thrashing on the ground like a madman. But it made no difference. The guards hauled him up and dragged him away. Inside the prison walls, Zhao quickly learned the brutal hierarchy. After a severe beating from the reigning cell block boss, he became a trembling, obedient lackey. The former tycoon who commanded hundreds now scurried to fetch meals for the inmate leader, his eyes downcast, stripped of all dignity. He clung to a sliver of hope, fueled by hatred. Survive the 15 years, get out, seek revenge. He thought if I could do it to him, he could do it to me. But I had one last move to make. I visited the prison, but not to see Zhao. I went to see Marcus, the tough-looking man with the fierce eyes I'd briefly encountered in the detention center. The man who had nodded at me, silently, warning me to stay out. He was an old neighbor from my childhood, known for being tough, a fighter. He looked rough, even dangerous, but underneath, I knew he had a core of loyalty, a code. "How is she?" Marcus asked immediately, gripping the bars separating us, his voice thick with emotion. "The surgery was a complete success," I told him, pulling out my phone. "The new kidney is functioning perfectly. She's recovering well, looks much better." I showed him a recent photo, then a short video I'd recorded. His wife, looking frail but hopeful, smiled gently into the camera. "I'll wait for you, Marcus," she whispered in the video. "However long it takes, I'll wait." Tears streamed down Marcus's rugged face. "How much?" he choked out. "The surgery, how much did it cost?" "A little over $1 million, I said casually. He stared at me, knowing I didn't have that kind of money lying around. Where did you get it?" "Sold my apartment," I shrugged, smiling faintly. "Just bricks and mortar." "But, without a house, how will you live?" he asked, bewildered. "Having her," I said, thinking of Sophia. "Safe, and with me, that's life." The apartment wasn't. Marcus looked at me, a deep understanding passing between us. He nodded slowly, heavily. "Thank you, David. Thank you." Late one night, as Victor Zhao slept fitfully in his prison bunk, he was jolted awake by a presence looming over him. He scrambled up, heart pounding, staring at the unfamiliar, menacing face of Marcus. What do you want?" Zhao stammered, trembling. Marcus offered a slow, chilling grin. "Victor Zhao," he growled, his voice low and dangerous. "You try to have me killed?" Before Zhao could react, Marcus lunged. In his hand was a toothbrush, sharpened to a deadly point. With brutal precision, he drove the makeshift shiv downwards, directly into Zhao's groin, twisting viciously. Blood spurted. Zhao let out an unearthly scream of agony before passing out. On the floor beneath the bunk lay two small, round objects. Marcus stomped on them hard, crushing them into unrecognizable pulp. The wet, cracking sound was sickeningly reminiscent of eggs breaking underfoot. Quickly, Marcus reversed the shiv, thrusting it into Zhao's limp hand. Then, he drove the pointed end into his own thigh and shoulder, drawing blood. Red smeared the concrete floor. Hearing the screams, guards rushed in, flashlights cutting through the dim light, revealing the gruesome scene. "He attacked me," Marcus yelled, his voice filled with convincing terror and desperation. "He went crazy, tried to stab me with this thing. I had to defend myself." The guards questioned the other inmates in the cell. One by one, they pointed to Zhao, corroborating Marcus's story. "Yes," Zhao snapped, attacked Marcus first. "It was self-defense." The guards carried both bleeding men away to the infirmary. Losing the ability to function as a man wasn't the worst of it for Zhao. Attempted murder in prison is a major offense. Though emasculated and permanently damaged, he was charged. His sentence was extended by another 20 years. Furthermore, he was transferred to a maximum security facility in a remote, desolate desert region, reserved for the most dangerous criminals. No chance of parole, no glimpse of the outside world for decades. Utter despair. Now, whenever he hauls heavy rocks under the scorching sun, enduring back-breaking labor, getting beaten senseless by other hardened convicts, whenever I happen to see the prison reports or the rare, grainy photos of his broken, dehumanized state. I imagine him in the dead of night, alone in his cell, secretly weeping, remembering the power and luxury he once took for granted. He must regret it. Oh, how he must regret it. If, by some miracle, he survives the hellish conditions of that kuyao, bitter kiln, slang for harsh prison, he'll be released in 35 years. He went in at 45, broken, scarred, enduring daily abuse and brutal labor. Will he even live to see 80? His future is a terrifyingly long, bleak, seemingly endless expanse of suffering. I had started with a home, modest savings, a loving wife. Now, the house was gone, sold to pay for Marcus's wife's life-saving surgery. The savings were depleted, spent ensuring Victor Zhao could never harm anyone again. I was, by material standards, poorer than when I started. But standing there, I felt peace. It was worth it. Every penny, every risk. Even the smallest man has lines that cannot be crossed. Even the powerless can find the courage to topple giants. The new city felt fresh, full of possibilities. Snowflakes drifted down, blanketing the park in white as I walked with my family. My father, his leg mostly healed, walked slowly beside me, supported by my mother on one side and Sophia, now 8 months pregnant, on the other. We strolled together, laughter mingling. With the crisp winter air, enjoying the simple tranquility. I held Sophia's hand, my mother held my father's arm, and Sophia rested her other hand on my mother's shoulder. The four of us, a small, unbreakable unit. We paused, looking out at the snow-covered landscape, savoring the quiet joy of being together, safe. My phone buzzed with a message. It was from Eleanor by, "Do you know why I decided to help you back then?" I didn't reply immediately. Another message followed. "The way you spoke about your wife, the fierceness, the love, it reminded me so much of my father. He died in a car accident 2 years ago. He was like that with my mother. Utterly devoted, fiercely protective. In his last moments, trapped in the wreckage, he made sure the rescuers saved her first. You have that same kind of strength, David. That same kind of love." Reading her words, I felt a strange mix of gratitude and humility. "Cherish her always. I wish you both happiness." I started to type a reply, but Sophia called out, her voice bright with joy. "David, honey, come here. Let's take a family photo with Mom and Dad. May you find happiness too, Eleanor," I thought silently. I pocketed the phone and hurried over, wrapping my arms around my beloved wife, pulling my parents close. The camera clicked. A snapshot in time. My parents, smiling, relieved. Sophia and I, beaming, full of hope. A world with family, that's the best world. A world with her by my side, that's everything. End.